So yeah, it's interesting because when I would tell people, most people are very surprised because they're like, oh my goodness, we thought you were so happy and we're so inspired by the way you parent and how you treat each other. So, a lot of people are surprised. But and that's why for me, it took a while to really realize that I wasn't happy. And I was hiding this unhappiness through escape type behaviors. And when I did realize it also took a while to accept it.
Mhm.
And now, it's been about 3 years, I would say. And I'm finally at a place where I feel really happy with where I am and our relationship together.
Hello, and welcome back to the Eat Real to Heal podcast. I'm your host, Nicolette Richer. As we wrap up this year, I wanted to bring you a conversation that feels less like an interview and more like a heartfelt talk with a close friend. This is a conversation about conscious uncoupling, coming face to face with addiction and sobriety, and reclaiming your health through food. Today, I'm sitting down with Raya. Raya is a cherished member of our community, a devoted mother, and someone who walks a path of deep and personal honesty. This is a story about the quiet revolutions that happen within a single life. It's about the courage to look at the structures we've built, our relationships, our habits, our very sense of self, and to ask if they still serve the person that we are becoming. We talk about the moments that force us to choose between fear and love, and what happens when we finally choose love. We explore the daily rituals that become our anchor and how the food on our plate can become one of the most profound ways that we learn to listen to ourselves again. This is a raw, hopeful, and deeply human conversation about healing, not as a destination, but as a daily practice of coming home to yourself. So, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, I invite you to settle in and listen. Here is my beautiful conversation with Raya. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Eat Real to Heal podcast. This is our final recording for 2024, and I'm so excited to introduce to you a beautiful community member, wonderful friend, and also fantastic nutrition and detox student of mine, Raya Lethem. Raya, welcome to the Eat Real to Heal show.
Thank you, Nikki. It's an honor to be on your show.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show is because I realized that I don't always, pull my clients onto the show. I'm often interviewing, other scientists, researchers, doctors, and I bring their intelligence onto the show. But there's the true inner healing and wisdom stories that you carry from a lifetime of doing your own inner healing work, and physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And I was like, it's time now that I just showcase my incredible students and clients. And so you are helping to share the knowledge of how Eat Real to Heal and the nutrition and detox program has been serving you in your life, but then also to give you the opportunity to talk about the healing work you're doing in the world, because that is what you're doing. You are a healer out there. And so we're going to be diving into all of that. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to be here today to share your story.
Thank you.
So, Raya, you have a beautiful background. And for our audience members who are listening to this, it's interesting when you live in a small town, because Raya and I actually live in a small town called Pemberton. And what's the population here?
Oh, I have no idea. One
2,700?
one elementary school. So
Yeah, exactly. So it's one elementary school, one high school. It's very, very tiny, and it's a farming community. We live in the richest, most nutrient dense soil area of, I think, all of Canada, if not North America. We're pretty lucky to live here. But it is a small community, like 2,700 people, I think. And even in all of that time, I think you and I never really got to spend any time together.
Mhm.
No. And so
No.
then you sign up and do our nutrition and detox program. I get to know you more, and then I get to hear this beautiful other side that you have. And so we're going to be talking about all of that. So, one thing I want to dive into, which I just think is so fascinating, I am a divorcee. So, my husband, who I've been married to for, we've been together for 22 years, I was married to another gentleman before him. And I wouldn't have used the word conscious uncoupling, but that is a term that I'm hearing. It was a pretty hard, intense divorce, but we ended up becoming really good friends afterwards. But it took like more than a year, 2 years of like in lots of intensity. And you have just recently separated from your partner, but you shared with me something that I thought was really interesting is that you're doing this in a quite a unique way that I'm seeing a lot of other people my age who are getting divorced, nasty divorces. You're really being conscious of how you do this, especially because of the fact that you have two kids. Can you talk a little bit about that and share some of the wisdom that you've been gaining through this experience?
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, it's interesting because when I would tell people, most people are very surprised because they're, oh my goodness, we thought you were so happy and we're so inspired by the way you parent and how you treat each other. So, a lot of people are surprised. But and that's why for me, it took a while to really realize that I wasn't happy. And I was hiding this unhappiness through escape type behaviors. And when I did realize it also took a while to accept it.
Mhm.
Um, and now, it's been about 3 years, I would say. And I'm finally at a place where I feel really happy with where I am and our relationship together because I love him, as the father of my children. He's my spiritual teacher. He's my best friend. But I can stand in my truth. And in doing that, I don't have any more resentments towards him. We
Mhm.
might still have little arguments because we see each other every day. We're parenting, we share cars still, etc. So, there's that. And we also want to support each other in our businesses. And what was happening before was not only was I escaping through self-destructive behavior, but the resentments caused me to, act in a way that I wasn't me. I didn't want to be this angry person. I didn't want to be yelling. I didn't want to like be holding all these resentments for really minor things. And so, and it took a while to look at, why I was behaving like that. And again, it was because, and I don't want to say it's just because I wasn't happy. It's more that my purpose in life that I'm still discovering. I don't know it
We
exactly. I
all
don't
are.
know
We
my
all
own
are.
purposes, and they change a little bit throughout. But that wasn't being fulfilled. It was being stagnated,
Mhm.
and the action of separating out from a romantic relationship with him needed to happen for me to take that next step in my spiritual growth and evolution. And I see that progress, and there's still work to be done there. But again, like it's created this beautiful dynamic between us where, for example, he's just starting to make coffee, fresh roasted coffee from local farmers around. We're in Huatulco, Mexico right now. So we've got a house here and then in Pemberton. And it's like the most beautiful coffee. It's the only coffee I can drink without getting like nauseous or jitters or, anxiety after. And he also makes really good coffee for enemas. So in that sense, it's
That's
like,
amazing.
I want to support that and I want to encourage him to keep working on that. And then from his point of view, all the things that, I need to do, and I need to take time for myself away from the boys, which is part of, who I am. I do need those periods of time, whether it's a day, a week, even a month,
Mhm.
where I'm just with myself to work on myself and my healing. He supports that, and so we support each other in our success, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, which is amazing. And I can bear witness to that because I remember he was dropping the boys at gymnastics and I saw him and he was just talking about you and raving about you. And, he was saying how much he loved being in the program and, how he was seeing like these beautiful changes. And I was like, and I didn't know that you had separated at all. And the way he was speaking about you, I left that conversation just like so warm in my heart, being like, oh, wow, like, he adores you, he loves you, thinking you were still together. And it wasn't until like many months later you told me you had been separated for quite a while. And I was shocked, but I actually felt an even more deep sense of just love for humanity. The fact that there's this healthy masculine, from what I'm seeing from the outside, individual who can just speak so highly of you versus negatively, right? Because I've seen relationships where one person, like the relationship is not working. They've trying to do the work, they can't do it. Separation and divorce is the way that they feel is right, but then the other person has so much resentment, and then really, of course, where ego gets involved. There's hurt, there's fear, there's every emotion you can imagine, but also the person's not probably taking responsibility for themselves and doing their work. So when I saw that response from your partner, and he's still a partner because he's like a partner in parenting, right? That he like it was just I was just like, we have it within ourselves to be able to do this. And not to say that it was always like that. I'm sure there were really tough moments. But can we go back to the moment where you started to um think about separating and what was happening in your life around that, and what was it like to make that decision?
Um, oh yeah, okay. So I'll give a little bit more background in terms of who I am first, because that might be helpful. So in my late 20s, I realized I had issues with addiction.
Mhm.
And so I ended up, working on that and facing that. And I went to treatment and, did a bunch of things. I started to do 12-step programming, and I ended up staying completely sober for 9.5 years. And in that time, in fact, right at the start of my sobriety, I had met Pollock. And so he was sort of with me throughout, those years. And we had kids. And then it's hard to pinpoint exactly when, but what I do remember is when my younger turned 1, I
Mhm.
started drinking again. And that to me was the sign. I didn't realize it at the time, but that was sort of the sign right there that I wasn't being true to myself. I wasn't, there's something that I was avoiding and escaping, and I didn't know what that was. And so that continued for a while until I started to do some courses, some sort of intuition type courses, working with a mentor. And she would ask questions to the students and get people, to think about, your day and just different things. And it just hit me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm really not happy in this romantic relationship, but I don't want to leave because I don't want to hurt the person. Um,
Mhm.
and I didn't. It took a long time to accept that. And it was, it's actually just recently that I've connected the dots with my relationship with my mom. And when I was about 13 years old, um, let me backtrack even more. So when I was born, I was like the best thing that had ever happened to my mom. So believe me, I love her more than anything. And she gave me so much love. I'm so thankful for that. But I guess she, how they explain, she put me before her. She put loving me before her own self-love. So I grew up in that situation. And I remember when I was 13, I went to France with my grandma, and she just completely lost it. She melted in a puddle because I was away from her for more than 24 hours. And from that point on, I didn't realize this consciously, but that ingrained this notion that, if you leave someone that you love, you might destroy them. So
Yeah.
don't do that. And so when I look back at past relationships, I've got a little bit of that patterning. And so that had come up in my relationship with Pollock. Um, so so now where was I? Going back to
Just going back to the moment where you really
yeah.
see that,
And then
it's time.
yeah. And then I didn't want to do anything major. Like finances would be one thing, the kids don't want to be traumatic. So I just started by just sleeping in the bunk bed of my son's room. And it felt
Mhm.
really good to have this like personal space. And it's the first time I'd felt that in a little while, and probably since having kids, really, because newborns are you're definitely at a different spot in your life. It's so magical, but you do kind of lose yourself a little bit for that time period. Anyway, so So I just remember being really happy to be in that space, which is just like my own space. And I considered moving out, but then what ended up happening is COVID, lots of things happened, and I decided I wanted to go move to Mexico. He agreed. So I ended up coming down to Mexico first and had some alone time. And I was pretty happy on my own, but at the same time, I was in my addiction still. So I thought I'd come down and do a bunch of work and be all, healthy on the beach, but I ended up just partying the whole time. So, but then about a month later, they came down and we tried to make it work down here. Because I thought, you know what, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, I'm going to give this another shot because he is an amazing person. So we did try to make it work, but then those things kept coming up. Like I'd try to stop drinking, it didn't work. I would have these resentments. I didn't know why. I'd have panic attacks, so many things. So then timing's a bit, I'm not quite sure exactly, but let's just say a year and a half ago, I made the point, I'm like, no, that's it. Like we've tried, and it has to be like the romantic stuff has to be done. And so from that point forward, I've stayed steady with that. And it's been amazing. It's been a process for sure. It's been challenging. There's lots of feelings of guilt and confusion. But again, I'm now in a place where I feel so much more empowered, so much more just getting to know myself. And like I had mentioned before, that for me, my goal is to be as authentic as possible so I can expand on my spiritual journey. And so as part of that, I had to take this action. And because he's also on his spiritual journey, he understands. He understands and he supports it. And so we can both support each other on our own paths.
Yeah, that's amazing. There's so many pieces in what you're saying there too. Like, for example, when you talk about the addiction, so your addiction is alcohol, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we all have addictions is, one of the things that many of our listeners here might be thinking, well, I don't have addictions. I don't drink. I don't do drugs, but we all have addictions. And in our relationships as well, like you being in a relationship is a really sure way, especially when you've been in it for long enough to show us what our addictions are, how we escape. Like for some, it's, for me, for sure, it's Netflix. For sure. It's like, if I want to escape, I'll go there. And it's hard to resist it. And I'll do it to my detriment, where I will sacrifice sleep. And I know how important sleep is. And so here I am, binge watching some show, convincing myself, like I'll even tell my husband, the show was so good. Yeah, I learned so much. And it's literally just a Netflix show on whatever. So and it took me a long time to realize that. And the more I watched Netflix, also, the more I knew I was turning away from my husband. And because relationships are hard, they are stressful, you need time by yourself. You'll, as opposed to taking just the time and asking for it, to be like, you know what, I need a month out here. Like I've been a mom for 16 years or 19 years now, and to just ask for that. But I wouldn't ask for that for fear of hurting the family, for fear of hurting my husband, for, everything that you said. And I love the honesty that you have around this and your ability to be introspective and self-reflective on that, as opposed to what do a lot of us do in relationships. And when I'm saying us, I'm saying collectively, all humans. We will want to blame the other person. We'll want to blame our job. We want to blame like everybody else, but actually take responsibility for ourselves and own up to these, because it is a hard decision, right? To go through that. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Especially because our culture has sort of set it up that if you do get divorced, that's considered a failure. Yeah. And marriage is considered the ultimate thing, and you're successful if you stay married. So there's a lot of beliefs that for some people that's amazing if they can stay married together for their life. Like I'm so happy for people that continue to stay in love like that. Even and then love doesn't mean you're like completely passionate and everything's 1000%. I know that, but there's a difference between that and realizing that your path might not be to be with that person for the rest of your life. And some of the things I've learned is it's because as we grow and evolve, we want to be learning. Right? We're looking for lessons. We're looking for interactions and relationships that keep us and help us to expand and learn.
Yeah.
And sometimes staying in, you might initially be learning and expanding in a relationship, but there might come a point where that becomes stagnant.
Yeah.
And it's hard for people to see that because there's so many, there's the cultural belief, but there's also a lot of attachments. There's financial attachments, there's, comfort being in a house. Maybe it's like the friends and the family that you really love. Like there's so many different reasons why we might not see that, like, that relationship is becoming stagnant for
Yeah.
our personal growth. And, it's up to each person to sort of see that. And, but yeah, I think so for me, part of it too is like, just seeing past that concept of failure and seeing it as a successful choice, a choice of success. So,
Yeah.
and
As
for
a society.
not for sadness, not for breaking up, but like for actually expanding love. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And growth for sure. And I know that too. Like, I having been married once and then now being married and going through, it's hard. It's hard having kids. It's hard on women in our society because we are expected to manage money. We are expected to earn money. We are expected to also keep a house. We're expected to be these awesome parents in light of TikTok, Facebook, Pinterest, Etsy, all this stuff. Like the amount of pressure that is on women, plus also to be spiritually evolved now, right? We also, on top of that, have to be and self-aware, heal our traumas. It just keeps getting layered and layered. And I'm like, there is not enough hours in the day to cold dip, eat clean, have a healthy sex life with your partner. Like it's like there's not enough hours in the day.
Hey, beautiful humans. Scott here from Team Richer Health. Let's get real for a moment. We're living through a mental health crisis. Rates of anxiety, depression, and PTSD are higher than ever. And for so many people, the usual treatments just aren't working. That's why I want to talk to you about psychedelics. That's right, psychedelics. It's a hot topic right now, and honestly, I love that we're finally having this conversation. It's not about the party stories, it's not about the stigma, but the real evidence-based healing. For centuries, traditional cultures have used plant medicine to heal. Now science is catching up, with thousands of studies supporting that psychedelic therapy can help people with mental health disorders, anxiety, depression, and also those seeking deeper creativity, spiritual growth, resilience, and an overall well-being. That's all of us humans. Dr. Nicolette Richer is a certified psychedelic therapist, and she describes it as one of the most beautiful additions to her healing work. Over the years, she's had the privilege of guiding people through safe, ceremonial plant medicine sessions, and what she's witnessed is nothing short of profound. Talk about profound. I've experienced this firsthand, freedom from trauma that's held me hostage for years, finding laughter, peace, grace, and a life's purpose. Something I was yearning for decades. This isn't fringe anymore, it's real. It's happening, and it's raw and beautiful. And if you want to dip your toes into this universe, I recommend watching How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan on Netflix. It's a beautiful documentary that explores the history, the science, and real potential of psychedelics. If you're feeling the call, and if you're curious but unsure, you can book a free consult with Dr. Nicolette Richer. Let's see if this might be the path forward for you. You'll find the link in the show notes, or you can contact us directly at richerhealth.ca. Thank you so much for listening.
And and I get that. And one of the things that I've started doing too is because as I've, age is a wonderful thing because there's a lot of wisdom that can come with that aging. So I really embrace aging. I'm like, bring on 50. I can't wait to get to the other side because apparently there's some magic that happens when you turn 50. It's like, I don't give a fuck attitude kind of sets in and you're just like, whatever, I'm going to take care of myself now. But one of the things I started doing was sleeping in another room. And at first I felt guilty doing that because I thought like this meant my relationship wasn't healthy. But I realized that there's several nights in a month I need to have nobody's energy around me because I've had babies attached to my breast for so many years. I've had babies in my belly for so many years. I've had a husband that's, wants to be sexually active for so many years. And plus I've been building businesses and I need space. And I need energetically the room to have no other breathing humans in it. And to do that was the best thing that I ever did. And but at first I felt guilty, and then I felt guilty for feeling guilty. And then finally just talking to my partner about it, being like, are you okay with this? Because I'm really okay with this. And he was like, no, thank you. Like, I really get a different quality of sleep and also get to wake up feeling refreshed when we don't sleep in the same room sometimes. And that is something that, I had somebody else tell me, like, oh, you don't sleep in the same room. You should never sleep apart from your husband. And I was like, oh God, please, that pressure too, on top of everything else, it's too much. It's too
Yeah.
much. Right. So women, if you're out there listening to this, know it is okay to need your own space for our
Totally,
personal growth.
totally.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, exactly. And it's honoring that, right? And not just because it's something you're supposed to do. And I so agree. I think, if I get into another relationship, I'm going to want my own room too, or my own place. Like,
Yep.
I know people that, I've separated and then they live in different houses and then they're back together because they've got their own place and they feel happy about that situation. So yeah.
Yeah. And I feel blessed to be born in this day and age where we can make those decisions and we don't have church and religion and, other laws. For example, some countries, like if a woman gets divorced, like the husband might cut off her labia, or maim her so she can't be in a relationship with somewhere else. Like, we are fortunate to be in a place where we can make those choices. And some other people might argue otherwise, but I really feel fortunate that we can do that without too many repercussions. So, what I would love to, I want to shift into AA. Okay, because you have direct experience with that, and I would love for you to share. You spoke a little bit earlier about, how um, some people are afraid of what that means, like what is AA, all the stigma that can go along with it. Some people are afraid to talk about it, and again, like I had no idea. Like, you're a community member, but I had no idea, and I also have no idea what percentage of community members go to AA in our tiny little town. And even I, if I met somebody, I would be nervous. The old me would have been nervous to talk about it. Now I'm so fascinated by it, especially because my dad is 1 year sober after we did an intervention. Yes, yay, dad. Dave, if you're out there listening to this, and he's been an alcoholic my whole life. But it's been beautiful watching him go through, especially being somebody who's not spiritual, not religious. He was like not very community oriented, like to go stand in a room with a bunch of strangers and share his personal experiences. He wouldn't have done that. And then to see where he is now, he's a different human being. So when did you decide to start going to AA?
Oh, that's a good question. So in that first round of sobriety, I was going to AA. So that would have been, I think, late 20s I started. And I stayed in the rooms for about 6 years. And then when I got pregnant, I stopped because I was just too nauseous and too tired.
Mm-hmm.
And the meeting was only at 8 o'clock at night. And I was like, I need to be asleep by like 6 at this point. And then I just didn't really go back. And I did stay sober for 4 years. But I think what happened through that time is I just kind of forgot the severity of what the illnesses that I have. And even calling it an illness is hard for me to say, but but I can now accept that and actually be very thankful for it now. So basically, when I did start drinking again, realize I had this problem again, and try to stop. I did everything. I did, work, plant medicine work. I did cleanses. I did anything you can do. I did like alternative meetings that weren't necessarily AA, counseling programs, because I was like, I just don't want to go back to AA because I think I'll have failed if I go back. And but none of those things for me, they might work for other people, but for me, none of it worked. And then when I remember I ran into a friend. I was super hungover at soccer practice, Pemberton, super hungover. And I saw this friend of mine that I knew. And, one of the things about Alcoholics Anonymous is it is anonymous. So that we have to be very important. When you asked about how many community members attend, I'm going to say I have no idea.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because it's Alcoholics
Yeah,
Anonymous. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I can share my experience. That's fine. And
Yeah.
I'm fine to share it. I don't mind, but I can't speak for anyone else, except that I will say that, I was reminded that, hey, this is a good place to go. Why don't you go? So
Right.
I went, and I was like, I felt so defeated. I felt so embarrassed. And I was like, oh my God, here I am back again. But then I'm like, wait a minute, actually, this isn't so bad. This is actually exactly what I need. And it took a little bit, I did, I didn't stop drinking that day necessarily.
Mhm.
But then, once I did finally commit to the program that goes along with just attending the meetings, I've stuck with it. And it's the first time that I feel complete relief and complete freedom from being afraid to drink, really, again. And ultimately it's a spiritual program. Ultimately, a lot of people, when they first go in, are not spiritual at all, or maybe they were religious and had really bad experiences. And so it's a really interesting, they approach it in a really interesting way, because the important thing is that it's to honor something greater than you, that is up to you, completely up to you. It could be a god, it could be a doorknob. That was, someone said, just honor the doorknob.
Yes.
And it could be nature. And for me, I already had a spiritual practice, so I had a pretty good idea of what it was. And for me, it was inside, like it's going inside, that the kingdom of heaven lives within, for me. And the more I studied the program, the more you can kind of see between the lines that they're implying the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's honoring this concept that something greater than yourself, this consciousness, this love energy, this wonder, you can access it by tuning inside and doing the work from within. And just this morning, actually, I was listening to an astrologer, Pam Gregory, and she's my favorite. And she touched basically on that, and she said, the way to access that greater power is focusing on your inner work and learning to listen and tune inside. And she's a really big one for a mantra that she says to repeat is, I am welcoming in an expanded consciousness of love. To close your eyes and actually like try and feel that inside of you. Now, when I practice that, sometimes I don't feel love inside at all. Sometimes I feel extreme anger, fear, so many things. But then that's also a big part of the program, is people come in with a lot of darkness, really. And a lot of things they've done in their life that, maybe they're ashamed of, they're guilty, a lot of dishonesty. And it's a place where you can actually like look back and heal those things. And so and it's okay. It's like, it's okay to have these areas of darkness, because if you don't have darkness, how can you even know that light exists?
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question. I think I went off on a little bit of a.
No, I think it's really important, because I know for myself, I only ever had one other friend that I knew about that went to AA, and he was really open about it. We've been friends for like over 20 plus years. And, and it is one of the things, I had the ability to practice what it was like to be in like party environments with alcohol, with him who doesn't drink, doesn't do drugs. And, and to not feel uncomfortable, like to not, to be able to be like, hey, are you okay with us drinking? And he'd be like, oh yeah. And he is like, he's amazing. And to be able to also say, hey, is it ever hard for you? Or to just ask the questions that we often don't want to ask because we just don't know how to ask them. And for everybody, it's going to be different, right? But there is an uncomfortableness because we don't really understand how to communicate with people who are in AA. Right. We know how to communicate with other people who drink, like, hey, let's just drink, right? Like, let's just party, let's do that. But we haven't been taught how to communicate. I don't even know if there's a book that teaches you on how to communicate with somebody who has an addiction, and, whether it's a food addiction or porn addiction, it doesn't even matter. But I mean, they don't teach this in school. So you don't know. So you have to kind of, figure it out. And so then when my dad, because none of us talked to him about his drinking, because he was a good drunk. He would talk more, he would be kind. He didn't get angry when he was drunk. He actually became kind, but when he was sober, he was angry and grumpy. And so for nobody in the family would say anything until I had an awakening for myself that um, through a psychedelic experience that actually made me my dad. I got to experience the world through his eyes, through his experience, through his brain, through his body. And it showed me that the world was too much. Every emotion, whether it was happiness or sadness, was too much. Every feeling hurt too much. And so I left that psychedelic experience, not knowing if it was true or not, but knowing I had to ask him. And so for the first time ever in 48 years, I said to my dad, I was like, Dad, could this be why you drink? Because the world is too much. It's too hard. It's too hurtful. It's too emotional. It's too everything. And he was like, yeah. And the medicine showed me that it was to just numb it all out. And intellectually, I probably could have made sense of that, but to embody that experience in psychedelic medicine was what gave me the ability, the compassion, the kindness to also just ask him. And then I was able to ask him about, his inner child, and he was able to talk about it for the first time. Because my dad and I, we talk about the weather and the garbage. Like, is it garbage day? Okay, take out the garbage, Like we never talked about really anything emotional. And and that conversation is what prompted everything after that for him to go to AA. And the one piece I want to share is something that hit me really hard is I thought I knew my dad because he's my dad and I've known him my whole life. And I saw him as one individual who is not emotional, grumpy, mean. Like our house was pretty intense growing up. Um, Somebody who was like all the descriptions I would have given. And now the individual that I know in AA is a human that I've never known my whole life. I'm actually meeting my dad for the first time.
Oh my God.
And
That's
it
so
makes,
beautiful.
what's that?
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Well, and so we sit and he tells me about his dad. I didn't even know his dad's name, like he'd never talked about his family. So I never knew my grandfather. And so to have him talk about these different things and to go, wow, he's actually a very soft, kind, warm, gentle, hurting man who suffered from depression, all of these things. And so now it's made me go around and look at where I look at everybody in society and I go, do I really know you? Right? Like, do we really know the other individual? And what would it look like if we all went to AA, did the 12 steps, let go of that hurt, the shame, the guilt, like who's on the other side of that? Right?
Mm,
And it just
yeah.
makes me want to know people now, like more than anything. But I
Uh,
wouldn't have had that if AA hadn't given that to my dad.
well, and that's one of the reasons I value sitting in the room with there other people that are doing their best to be honest and authentic to themselves. And yeah, exactly, showing up as their true self, or at least trying to figure it out. Because there's a couple things I'd love to touch on. And, one is the emotional part, like what you mentioned about your dad, maybe the world was too much, he was super sensitive. And I can so relate to that. I so relate to that. And it's how I filtered it out. And so, being sober, yes, feelings are like incredibly powerful. And what I've had to do is, take steps back in terms of my day. So my day is not as busy. So I have time to actually feel my feelings. And sometimes it's not pretty,
Yeah.
but I'm allowing myself the space to do that. And I've also set up my life like a routine so that I can move those feelings in a way that, that I can process them in a constructive way. So that's, there's a big ocean right there. I go in that ocean every day. So that's one big way. And, it doesn't have to take long, half an hour. And then I prepare my own food. For me, that's another way to express my emotion and be creative. I have all different things, but it doesn't mean I have to be creative by like painting or music. I can do those as well. But it's like, movement, physical movement is huge, a huge way to move emotions, dancing, working out, so that's one thing in terms of the feelings and the emotions. And then another thing you had mentioned about, your friend that, you didn't, that came out to the party and you were wondering if they're okay not drinking and how to approach it. And that's a really good question. And that's a journey that each person in sobriety has to figure out for themselves and figure out what their boundaries are. Some people can totally handle going out, some people not at all. And then there's everything in between. And for me, what I do now is I try not to commit to things where I have to be there for a certain amount of time. Like I have to be there from start to finish. Because, the first hour, I might be perfectly fine, but after that hour, if I'm starting to feel, a little bit unsafe or uncomfortable, but I have to stay longer, that's dangerous for me. So I set myself up so that, I can come and go. I can drive, it's no problem. So, leave as I need to in that sense. And then also it's like, saying no if you had initially say yes and not feel bad about that. So those are just certain things. And then like other things would be like doing social activities that aren't necessarily going out for dinner. So it could be like going for a hike in nature or, different things like that. So yeah.
That is beautiful. So, and I love that you answered one of the questions that I was going to ask is, what is your medicine every day? What is it that you do to keep yourself grounded, to keep yourself on track? And I love that you said that, the ocean's there and going into the ocean every day, moving your body. You're a Pilates instructor as well. I've done one of your classes before, and I wish I had gone back and stuck with it for years because I know how much my body needs it. So next time you're back in Pemberton teaching, I'm definitely going to sign up for your classes. So moving your body and how do you talk to your kids about it? That's one thing I wanted to know about. Do you talk to your kids about it?
Yeah. And but going back to medicine, something that I didn't say that's probably the most important is first thing in the morning is prayer and meditation. And so that's taking that moment to tune inside. And there's different prayers. One of them is that I'm welcoming in an expanded consciousness of love. And then there's a couple from the program that I also say, and practice feeling that prayer in my body and honoring that. And that will set me up for the day. And if I do have any kind of like weird resentments or funny things in my mind, it shifts me from that, out of that into like love and service. And it doesn't mean like an hour later, I'm going to come right back to my resentments and, things, but at least that sets me up for, continuing to work on that throughout the day. So that's probably the most important, is setting time for that. And then, so as you had mentioned, some of the other things are my medicine. And we can get to food after, I'm sure. But
we're going to dive into food for sure.
Yeah, in terms of my kids, well, you see, it's interesting because my older, he witnessed my struggle. I mean, they both did, but he, when I'd say, okay, I'm not going to drink, and he was happy. And there was this one point where I did drink again, and I had this glass of wine, and I looked at him and I saw his energy field was just like, it just dropped down into the floor like a puddle when he realized that was wine in my glass. And, he was, I think maybe 8 at the time, for an 8-year-old to, be that sensitive and that perceptive. And I realized, okay, this is serious, and this really means a lot to him. So from that point forward, I've been pretty open with him, and I say, I need to go to a meeting because, it helps me so that I stay sober. And he gets it and he supports it. In fact, he's even been to the odd one, because there's like a little kid area, and so he plays there sometimes. And so yeah, I'm pretty open with them. I mean, my younger, he's only 6 right now, so it's not really like a conversation. I guess it's just more, the fact that I'm more present with them, and they can feel that. And really, to me, that's the ultimate, right? Is to be able to be present with your kids, and be, like, participate in their life consciously.
Yeah, which it sounds like, that's work that you're doing every day and you're always going to continue to do as a parent. And parenting yourself, nurturing yourself, giving yourself all the same things that you're giving to your kids as well. so that you're not repeating those patterns that your mom, which a lot of moms did, a lot of moms, from that generation, it was like, you live for your kids and you weren't allowed to have your own bank account. You weren't allowed to work in a lot of cases too. So it's like, the only thing you had going was your kids. Plus you were judged by how well your kids, developed and grew, and, were they dressed well, and, so we all kind of come out of that era where it's like, no, kids, it's better if they have beach messy hair, and, they're, doing what they love, and they're spiritually evolved as well. So times are changing, and man, being a mom is tough. Being a parent is tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another
And
thing too is the alone time for me. And
yeah.
that can be hard for them, but I think they're learning to see that if I get that, then I'm a better parent.
Oh,
So
yeah. If I eat well, sleep well, and I get time to myself, I'm like this amazing parent. And I always know that when I start to get really snappy and angry and impatient, and, like, I know it has nothing to do with my kids. It has everything to do with myself. And it's that I didn't give myself the time that I needed, or the food that I needed, or the sleep that I needed. And, it really comes back to that. But it took me a long time to realize that as well. We're not any different than a baby, who's like, okay, do they need to take a poop? Do they need to eat? Do they need to drink? Do they need sleep? Or do they need comfort? Parenting, it usually comes down to those, 5 or 6 things. Like, they need play. But we're the same as adults. We're not any different than an infant. We need those things. And so make sure you pooped well, make sure you've played. And then it's interesting, like, our basic needs are met, and then we're just good people all around. Good, as I put quotation marks on good, whatever that means. Um, let's talk about food, because I know you need to get your kids to soccer, and we want them to be there on time. So you decided to join my nutrition and detox program, and you've been this stellar student. You take on case studies, you're teaching other people how to eat real to heal. What made you decide to join the program?
Good question. Well, I've always been interested in nutrition, and I've done little courses here and there. But I knew, well, it was personal interest for one. I wanted to do the program myself to see if it would help with my own physical healing. And then also something to complement my current Pilates instruction, Pilates business. So, because to me, like, physical health there's the movement aspect, and then there's the food aspect as well. And both are very important for mental and spiritual health. And I just love you. And when I, read your course, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is Nikki. And I've known you for so many years, and I love your restaurant. And I remember years ago talking to you about how, the Gerson therapy has helped people with mental health. I was actually thinking about my mom when this was probably like almost 10 years ago. We had this conversation. You might not remember. It was in Whistler.
Yeah.
And I was just so inspired by it. And I even tried to get my mom to go to your program. Anyways, so yeah, so there's that too, right? Like, just knowing that food is medicine. And so I signed up, and I don't know, is there the next question, or should I just
sure. Yeah. So, so you signed up, because a lot of times when we hear about nutrition programs out there, I mean, they can take you in any direction, right? It could be a keto diet, it could be the master cleanse, it could be a paleo, it could be, Atkins, aka keto. There's just been so many programs over the course of our existence, like the cabbage soup diet of our parents' time. Like, who knows, right? What people are teaching in nutrition programs. And so I'm curious, like, did you have a good sense of what you were about to get into, or was it a surprise once you were in? I'm curious to know what you thought.
Yeah, good question. I think pretty good sense. It was more little things. Like, I was surprised about the oils, like good oils. I thought there'd be more of that, or like a more promoting of that. But then what I realized is once, I'm learning about Dr. Max Gerson and his work, is like, his goal was to heal chronic disease, like, and actually just destroy cancer tissues through through food and through having the immune system be like super ultra functional. So so I guess I didn't realize that it was so how do I describe it? Yeah, I'm not quite sure what I'm trying to say here.
Like so intense.
Yeah, maybe that.
Yeah, because and that's what the nutrition detox program is about. It's like, we're not messing around here. Like, if you have a chronic disease, we want it gone. We're not going to, and we don't want to take months and years to do that, which so many people, they're flip-flopping back from like functional medicine doctors to naturopaths to nutritionists, and your disease reverses really quickly, but not if you're going to continue to keep adding things that are going to slow down that cellular regeneration process. And so we're just like, let's go back to the basics. And sometimes the basics for some people, I think, that's why I use the word extreme or intense, or, and it's why there's, and also the history. I mean, I could get into it with the history of a lot of these things that we've come to understand, like, fats are good for the brain. Yeah, they are. But what did people do before they had oil extraction machines? Right? Where did they get that from? And they got it from their food. And so do we need these intense amounts of sodium and intense amounts of oils and intense amounts of whatever it is that we're adding to our food? So, and so how's it been since you've been in the program? Talk a little bit about, what that's been like for you.
Yeah, because, a lot of people see me as being fairly confident in the kitchen and super healthy, and that I took on this program really easily. But, as part of being in the not the actual Eat Real to Heal program, but the Nutrition and Detox student program, we had to do the therapy diet 100% for 2 weeks. And I thought, oh yeah, no problem. But it took me about 2 months to even get myself ready to do that. And that was 2 months of like learning the recipes, practice cooking the recipes, collecting the ingredients, collecting the equipment. And so I just gave myself permission to do that slowly, because I'd feel the anxiety come up. Of like, oh my gosh, I need to start this. And then it's like, you will, just one step at a time. And so when I finally did do the 2 weeks, all of that was ready. Like, I already knew how to do the cooking and everything. So that wasn't like a mental stress for me. And then for me, it was like the ultimate things, coffee, like giving up my morning cup of coffee, and like, that was a big deal.
It's a big deal for me.
Yeah.
And I've been teaching this for 18 years. It's a big deal.
Yeah, coffee and chocolate. Those were the two biggest ones. But luckily, because of the coffee enemas, I didn't have any caffeine withdrawal. Like, I didn't get any headaches or anything like that. Like, I actually felt totally fine. And I actually really loved having chamomile tea for breakfast. Like, it hit the spot in a way that I didn't realize that it would. So I did the full diet for 2 weeks, as you know. And it was really powerful to recognize some of those attachments that I had. Letting those go was really empowering. Seeing the work involved was for sure something. Like, it was a lot of time in the kitchen. And so, recognizing that there needs to be a commitment for that. And when, just learning, like, if I was going to go out somewhere, to pack my own, thing. And that wasn't such a big deal. And then, because I actually, by the end of it, like, I just wanted to eat that food. I didn't want to eat any other food. And I'm still like that. Like, even though now I've expanded my ingredients to be a little bit more, like, I'll have more nuts, and there's this like raw and pasteurized cheese from a local farm here that I my body appreciates. So I have added those kind of things back in, and coffee in the morning, just one cup. So
the research shows that, cup of coffee a day is actually quite beneficial. And also, you're not dealing. What's that?
Oh, it's Pollock's coffee too.
Exactly. You got to support his business.
Oh, yeah.
I want to support his business too. And the research does show that coffee is helpful. And the difference being, though, that if somebody has a life-threatening disease, where the coffee is very acidic in the body, like, we need to alkalize the body like so fast, and to help that person heal from that life-threatening disease. But the whole point is to get us all back to the place where we're not on medications, we don't have upcoming surgeries looming, threatening to remove organs, and we're healthy and we have loads of energy. And then we can eat this abundance of amazing whole foods, right? like a coffee is a whole food, that cheese is, slightly processed, but technically a whole food. And there are certain cheeses that are health promoting, but most of the cheeses that most Americans and Canadians are eating are not health promoting. They're health or like disease causing. Um, products. And so it's to know the difference between the two as well, so that, and I can hear all the vegans listening to our podcast being like, not true. And I'm like, actually, the science does show that there's certain caseins that are really beneficial to humans. And in certain parts of the world, like, if you don't have a diversity and abundance of certain nutrients, that might be a go-to for certain nutrients that you might be able to have. So, but
Well,
it's to
it's
get us,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
You
no, go
say
on.
that because in Canada, I don't feel to want to have dairy in Canada.
No.
And if I do, I don't feel good after. Whereas, so there's something, it's just intuitively, my body's just like, however that dairy is processed is not healthy. Whereas this particular cheese is. And like that, but see, this is what was another thing that was like so thankful is I'm able to better refine my body's intuition in terms of what it wants, because I'm not blinded by cravings.
Yeah.
That's been huge. Like, I honestly don't want to go to a restaurant.
Hi, it's Scott from Team Richer Health, and I'm super excited to share our team's 20-year vision. We will be building Canada's very first chronic disease reversal and mental health disorder reversal hotel and wellness center right here in the heart of the Cowichan Valley, British Columbia. This will be a state-of-the-art, 100% plant-based, integrative health facility, a place for education, healing, regenerative tourism, and sustainable community building. It's more than a wellness center. It's a mission designed to help people around the world reverse chronic disease, overcome anxiety and depression, and return to their families healthy and thriving. This project will also create meaningful work and a lasting impact within a local community charged up for this project. But grand visions require big support. That's why we're inviting passionate investors who believe in healing and global wellness to join us as founding partners in bringing this first of its kind project to life. We would love your support in helping us spread the word. And if you know someone who's passionate about creating real life impact and might be interested in investing, we would love to connect. You'll find all the details in the show notes, or you can reach out to us directly at richerhealth.ca. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being part of this vision.
Yeah, that's unfortunately what happens to a lot.
I'd honestly prefer my own food that I prepare now. And, that's huge for some people to hear that, because they probably are like, I'll never give up my restaurant food, and I love my salt and my sugar and my all the things, right? I don't want that. Even if someone offers it to me, I'm like, okay, I'll try like a tiny little bite. Yeah.
No, it's what a lot of students say, and a lot of people who've done the program to heal, they say they're like, I used to love this restaurant down the street. We've been eating there for years. I love the chef. I love, the atmosphere. And then all of a sudden they're like, but all I taste now is salt, oil, and sugar. Like there's no beautiful, refined taste of like the gorgeous, like, flavors of the fruits and vegetables and whole grains that we cook with, because we've lost that because we've killed our palate with basically salt, oil, and sugar. And so it kind of ruins your experience for eating out. And my husband's the same way. He's like, why would I spend $50 on a meal at a restaurant? He's like, that doesn't, like, it all tastes the same. I could be eating at McDonald's. I could be eating at that restaurant, 5-star diet. And I'm like, I know. And so, yeah, eating at home is a much more lively, beautiful experience. I know exactly what you mean, even though I do love eating out. But
Mhm.
when I eat out, I'm also pretty demanding now. I'm like, hey, only good stuff on my plate, and I have no problem. It took me a long time to build up the courage to do that, and the self-worth to be like, you know what, I'm only worthy of good, healthy, amazing, healing food. None of that shit anymore. And that takes time. It takes time, right? You have to build that up when you get that awareness of that food is medicine.
Totally. And it is. It's nice to be served and feel that you deserve to be served healthy food,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. And we all deserve it. And that's what we all need to get back to. It's where we just are all, that's the only kind of food that we get to eat, is that healthy, health promoting, amazing, delicious, because it also has to be delicious. Like, I'm so tired of restaurants that are serving, plant-based meals and vegan meals. And it's like so dull and boring and it's just a whole head of cauliflower with, sriracha on it. I'm like, really? Is that as creative as you are with the 350,000 plant species on the planet? Like sriracha on a head of cauliflower, deep fried? Wow.
Yeah, the
We could
deep
do better as
fried.
humans.
Oh, I
Yeah.
know. Well, so my favorite, if I do want takeout, here, luckily, there's some ladies on the street and it's just like home prepared yuca. So
Oh, what's
yuca is like
yucca?
a type of, it's kind of like a potato, a little bit different, but it's like a sort of bigger and longer. And so they just, I think they boil it. I'm not quite sure exactly how they prepare it, but you can tell it's pretty plain. Like
Yeah.
there's no oils added, maybe like a tiny touch of salt, but because I now don't add salt to my things, I can tell if something's too salty or not. And so I'll just buy like a little bag of this yuca, and it's so delicious. Oh my gosh! And I'll pour a bit of flaxseed oil on it, have a little bit of salad greens, and I'm in heaven.
Ooh,
And
that sounds delicious.
not there, I think 20 pesos, so that's like less than $2.
That's amazing. Yeah. And nutrient dense, right? It's like a
Yeah,
whole food. Yeah. It hasn't been adulterated in too many ways. Yeah. That's amazing. Um, there's,
and prepared with love by people who have probably grown this on their family farm for generations
yeah.
here. So
And that is a really great segue into, one of the questions I like to ask our podcast guests is, if this is the last podcast to ever be made that anybody's ever going to listen to, and that's it, we don't get to hear any other podcast from here on in, like, what is the message that you want to share with the world? And I'll leave it to you to share that message. Like, what is the most important thing you want people to understand? Do you remember what
um
you said?
yes, and now I forget how I worded it. Okay, so going into 2024,
Hmm.
you can choose fear, you can choose love. And
Hmm.
um, you know, for me, I'm choosing love. And
Yeah.
the way to access that love is through this work, through this inner healing work, through learning to be your authentic self. Like, if you want to sleep in your own room, if that's what feels right for you to be your best authentic self, then do it. If you want to take that risk and like commit to eating 100% whole organic food, do
Mhm.
it and don't hold back, and trust in the success of that choice. Like, it might seem a little scary, or you might seem like, oh my gosh, I can't really do this. But trust in the unknown, and that, if you put it out there, the universe, chances are, is going to support you in that, in a way that maybe you don't expect, or in a way that, like, it's way more powerful than you realize. So I guess that I think is my message. I don't know how clear that is. And it in terms of the addictions, like, it's hard to admit it. It's really hard, and to ultimately choose love means you have to face a lot of darkness, and that can be scary, that can be painful, but it's worth it. And so that's there. That would be my message.
No, and that is a beautiful message because and it's not the first time we've heard this. Almost every spiritual book on the planet, self-help book on the planet, psychological book on the planet has said this. It's we enter out into the world, and every time we make a decision, we're often making that decision out of fear or out of love. And it's a beautiful practice to, like, for example, if you're not going to sign up for that course and go back to school, or if you're not going to book that vacation, with your family or with your friends or with yourself, ask yourself, like, why are you not doing it? Is it out of fear? Is it out of love? Or if you are taking action, it might be saying yes to a holiday event. And are you doing it out of fear that, and FOMO, that you're going to be missing out, or that you need to please those people, so you need to go? Or are you doing it purely out of love, because you truly just want to spend that time with people, and it's such a simple question, but it can help you get to your authentic self and help you discover. And what you discover might be painful. I shouldn't say I recently discovered, but definitely more recently discovered what a people pleaser I am. But not just a people pleaser. Some people may be like, yeah, right. We're women, a lot of us are people, but I'm like, no, to the extreme of people pleasing. And then to also see how I've created that in my, one of my daughters as well. And so that's something that we're working to undo and to try and understand that. Right. But I wasn't people pleasing out of love. I can tell you that. It was out of fear. And when you see that, it's like, oh, all the emotions that come with that, and that's just the top part. That's not even getting down, into all that stuff that's below the surface. And it's hard to acknowledge that, but it is a simple question. And what would this world look like if we went into 2024 choosing love?
Yeah. And with that is, what does love feel like versus what does fear feel like?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where this practice of like going inside, the exercise, the nutrition helps so that the messages are more clear from the body. But like for me, okay, so love feels expansive. Like there's this feeling of growing, of creativity, of infiniteness within. Whereas fear is more contracting because it's
Mm-hmm.
closing in. And so, that's I think another big thing that I would recommend people is just explore, what does it feel like to feel love? And some people are more visual. Maybe they have visualizations of what love might be like. Maybe they're more auditory, so they hear, maybe music or sounds of what love feels like for them, or it's in the physical body, like the physical sensations, and then vice versa. What is fear like? What does that sound like, look like, feel like? And just explore that for yourself and get to know yourself in terms of like those different sensations, and then hopefully you can better make choices based on fear or love. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So can I ask you and put you on the spot here? And you're not going to be able to say yes or no because I haven't asked you yet. So when I originally asked you to be on the podcast and you're like, yes, yes. And then you sent me a message to be like, I don't think I'm ready to be on. So talk a little bit about that from a fear and love perspective, and then why you changed your mind and decided to be on the show.
because I had an expectation that I'd be a lot further, in my course, B in my like, I don't know, my spiritual growth.
Mm-hmm.
um I had this expectation that I'd be, I don't know, completed something, like I've graduated from something, and I wasn't there yet.
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized, I'm like, you know what? Am I ever going to get there? And that in this moment, that like this is perfect in this moment. And what I will share, I did connect in, and I was like, okay, I'm going to share what's like of the highest vibration that I can share and express in this moment in co-creation with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to thank you because I feel that you hold a space that supports people to be able to share in their highest vibration. So
Mm-hmm.
um, so your message, you were like, you can reschedule, but I encourage you to show up. And so thank you for that encouragement. And I did.
Yeah, no, and thank you for doing that as well, because there's so much wisdom, so much life experience that you have. And even just your email to me, which I did use that email in our community. And we had talked previously before recording about, how the way I've designed the course is so, when you sign up for the course, it's not just an online course. There's 5 hours a week of group coaching so we can all be together and learn from each other and grow from, together, analyze our lab reports together, blood work together. When one person has a question, everybody has the same question, right? So you're always going to learn. And so I did use your email in one of our coaching sessions because I always say, you know what, if you send me an email, that's the question for the class. And it allowed me to bring up so many beautiful topics like perfection. Do we ever arrive in our healing? Is there's this like, you've just arrived at your destination, like there is none of that happening, on this journey of life and in being human. But it's through being able to share, like you were vulnerable in that email, which was beautiful. And to be able to share that. And right away I was like, everybody's feeling the same way. And we've had so many people that we have invited on our podcast and they cancel at the last minute, often literally the day before, the day of, and they're like, oh, I'm not ready to share my story. But we all have these beautiful stories because we're human, and every human goes through excitement and joy and love and fear and pain, and a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. And it's often through sharing those stories that we not only help ourselves, we unburden ourselves of holding that within, but we get to also lift people up, because people learn from that and they can grow from that. And just like you've done today. And so I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for showing up. I know it's not easy, but you did.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Likewise.
How do people get in touch with you if they want to work with you and do Pilates, because you're going to be graduating fairly soon here. You have submitted a lot of your assignments, so you'll be able to work with people. Do you have an idea, first of all, let me just ask you that, of how you do want to work with people using potentially nutrition and detoxification, if at all?
Well, yeah. Well, I'm, in terms of like working alongside people with addiction, I would love to help support them, their physical health. So that's through the movement and then through the nutrition. So I haven't quite gotten to like how I'm framing all of that yet. But it's something along those lines. Right, but in the meantime, my current website is pilatesbyraya.com, and you can do contact me and send me a little message. And I'm sure I'll be updating that website soon once I do graduate and, offer more services and stuff. But yeah, for now, I currently teach online privates and semi-privates Pilates, and then I'll do in-person classes wherever I am. So if I'm in Mexico, they're here. If I'm in Pemberton, they're there.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. We're going to have that in the show notes below. Like I said, I got to do Pilates with Raya. I did a session with her, and it was like, it's amazing. If anybody doesn't know maybe describe to some people what Pilates is, because I have a feeling some people may not know.
A lot of people don't know. The word Pilates is actually Joseph Pilates' last name. So he developed the Pilates system, and you may have seen photos of like weird looking contraptions called reformer, Cadillac apparatus. So he's designed the system because for him, he was like, the first requisite of happiness is physical health, and you're only as old as your spine is flexible. So he was a big proponent of the importance of physical health so many years ago, like before that kind of thing was, there was no, it wasn't normal to go to the gym, I don't know when that was, like 60 years ago. So he was at the forefront of the fitness revolution, we'll say. And so it's basically like, I'd say it's kind of like a combination of yoga with workout class, focuses on learning how to move from your core mindfully as well. So, being present in your body when you're moving, and helps with strength, flexibility, coordination. Amazing for like a lot of my clients are much older. So really helpful for maintaining agility and that sense of independence, physical independence as you get older, which is very helpful for, as we know, our mental and emotional health as well. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. So like I said, we'll have your website in the show notes, and we look forward to seeing your website be updated as well with the nutrition and detox information. And you and I will continue to work together, because one of my dreams for a long time was to do a study and to work with individuals with addiction, particularly alcohol and drug addiction. And because there's a few studies done on the Gerson therapy where they did use it with individuals who are going through withdrawal. And what they found is that they suffered far less withdrawal symptoms, and they were able to get through it safely, with less pain, with more ease, because of the fact that their body, the therapy helps the body to withdraw. Plus, they're so nutrified with all of those missing nutrients that were created as a result of the addictions as well. So by starting with that, then it makes it a lot easier. So that's potentially some work we can do in the future together, Ryan.
Amazing. Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to let you go and get your kids off to soccer. That's exciting. Soccer in Mexico. I wish I was there playing soccer in Mexico right now with all the heat. So thanks so much for being on the show, and thanks to our audience for listening.
Welcome back, and thanks for listening. What a powerful reminder from my guest Raya that our deepest healing comes from choosing love over fear in our relationships, on our plates, and in the daily rituals that ground us. If Raya's journey through conscious uncoupling, facing addiction and sobriety, and reclaiming your health through food resonates with you, here's how you can take your next step. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube and hit the bell so you're notified the moment our next podcast is live. You can also follow the podcast on your favorite platform, whether that's Spotify or Apple Podcast or any platform that you like to listen to our show on. Join our daily community by following us on Instagram and Facebook for insights, recipes, and updates. You can find us at Richer Health or at Nicolette Richer. And finally, you can explore Raya's work in movement and healing, and you can find her at pilatesbyraya.com, and all the links are in the show notes below. And finally, if you're ready to begin your own healing journey with food, everything that you need to know is linked below. Our Eat Real to Heal book, our step-by-step online course, and how to visit our organic plant-based cafes, the Green Mustache. So thank you so much for your time and for listening, and remember, every small, loving choice you make for yourself is a powerful act of healing. Until next time.